But he was very well off, and he had that huge tax bill which he had the money put aside, and then these sort of accountants got hold of him and told him how he wouldn't have to pay it, he could defer it, virtually indefinitely, and they lost all his money.
Isn't it a strange thing? You'd have thought that somebody, and I don't mean this in a spiteful, vindictive way, so please don't misread me, but you'd have thought that somebody who'd accrued $32 million worth of tax bills obviously would have earned more than twice that, okay, to find themselves in a position of owing $32 million.
You would think so, yeah.
And they can be hoodwinked out of it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's really surprising, because he does have the look of someone who's lived life a little, so it's not as if he's just come down the turnpike.
I know, but it's amazing, so many people lost money on their investments because they, like with the pensions, because they offered them the upfront tax relief.
Yes, well, it's a tremendous temptation, isn't it? If you say to someone, how much do you owe? And they say $32 million, and I've got it here in this leather briefcase.
Yeah.
But give it to me.
Not only did they lose his money, but then the government said, well, the scheme wasn't legally binding anyway, so they still had the bill.
Yes.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's doubly worrying, isn't it? But yeah. Fortunately, I'm able to tell you, Jack, that I don't have a burden like that myself.
Me neither. I've got to find $3,500 next month, that's all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, not too bad, is it?
I wish you well to pay it.
Thank you. It's put aside anyway.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Jack. You're listening to talkSPORT Radio. I'm Mike Allen. My number's 08704 20 20 20. If you've been to Thailand, how surprised are you that they've declared a coup? The interesting thing is that the army chiefs apologised for launching a military coup. Terribly sorry, we're going to have a coup. How surprised are you? If perhaps you've got connection with family or friends in Hungary, what was your reaction yesterday and today? One of the things that caught my attention last night was the fact that people throwing the rocks in Hungary were middle-aged men. But then I suppose they probably, like Willie Nelson, had lost a lot of money because they'd been told morning, noon and night. Was it morning, noon and night, or morning, afternoon and night?
Day and night, wasn't it?
It was three things. It was three times a day. Yeah. It was that they'd been told that consistently and lied to big time. Still. We'll take some more calls on that a little bit later on. I think that's an extraordinary situation. Suddenly, out of the blue, bash, here it comes. 08704 20 20 20. Ian Collins and Chessie are back tomorrow, and I just want to say thanks very much for the calls, support and bits. It's been a pleasure. And it was only ever, on my part, a cover shift. So it's been fun, and it's been very nice to work with the people at talkSPORT, actually, because we're a jolly crowd, aren't you, John?
Yes.
Patrick's given us a call. Perhaps you'd like to be part of the conversation. 08704 20 20 20. Bizarrely, we were sitting watching TV screens last night for a while. We're looking at some of the coverage coming in from Hungary, and there was a science fiction movie on another channel, and it was almost as if the scenes that were being played out of Hungary was almost, if you looked at the other screen, as if they could have been part of a science fiction movie. So we're a little bit phased by that. And then today to have Thailand say, oh, sorry, it's a coup. It's almost John Cleese, isn't it? Sorry, it's a clue. I mentioned the military coup, but I think I've got away with it. Very interesting. It's each nation's personality seems to come out under times of stress, but then of course they would. 08704 20 20 20. Claire Short, it's alleged, is planning a career in the media, just like Michael Portillo. It will, of course, require a certain amount of secret keeping. But do you think she'll find a future in her career move? John Reed has made the decision to utilise old army barracks as prisons, so that when he says he doesn't believe in early release for prisoners, he means it. Do you agree? I'd be surprised if you didn't. 08704 20 20 20. Patrick's in Stepney. Hello, Patrick.
Oh, good morning. I was just, a little bit tongue-in-cheek, really, but I think we could do with a military coup here with all the useless police you got on the streets and, with all these hoodies and horrible people running around. I think you could do with them here, with a little military coup of our own, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, what would it would be a party who are looking for what? Safety on the streets?
Well, just to remind the police what their jobs are and the judicial system. I don't mean killing anybody. I mean just, number one, if you get put into prison for a year, you do a year or whatever you get put into prison for. And also, if you're out of order, to be put up and to let the criminal know that, well, you know what I'm going to...
Yeah, sure. Well, that decision by John Reed to utilise all military establishments as prisons, that obviously appeals to you, because if he says if it's a 3-year sentence, then it's a 3-year as makes no difference sentence, as opposed to a 14-month or something.
Well, true, but they've got to, with this human... every time the government tries to do something, you get the human rights legislation gets in the way, and you get these right on liberal thinking elite sort of stop him, and there's an old saying, believe, the old Marvin Gaye song, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. I heard it through the grapevine.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, it's a bit tongue-in-cheek. I know it probably never happen here, but I think maybe the military needs to shake things up a bit and let the police see what they're, what the dereliction of duty that they're actually committing to the public.
The one of the big downsides of a coup, and just to be serious for a minute, is that any freedoms that have been won can very easily be lost under a military law.
Well, I think we haven't got that much. I don't think we've got that. Well, I mean,
not got that much to gamble with.
When we say that, freedom. I mean, what do you define as freedom? I mean,
what's that? Well, let's go to another song. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose.
Yes, that's true.
Me and Bobby McGee.
It's a game show now.
That's right. Yeah. Well, yeah, but it's. I think it's relevant. I mean, it's relevant in as much as we could lose access to certain, things that we've considered for years because we've had access to them to be essential freedoms.
Probably.
But, yeah,
probably.
We could lose that. But
I did say it's tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, and I took it that way.
Right.
I took it that way, and appreciate the call. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Talk Sport. It's Mike Allen, and as I mentioned earlier on, Ian Collins and Chesney will be back tomorrow, but if you'd like to be part of the conversation this morning, it's 08704 20 20 20. There's a coup in Thailand, and the first thing the army said was, sorry, it's a coup. It's pure John Cleese. The fact that they feel they have to take that procedure isn't John Cleese. That's not funny. No. But the dialogue is. Those people in Hungary who just had their whole financial background put into jeopardy by saying we lied to you. 3 ways to Tuesday every day. Vera's in Edgware. Hello, Vera.
Hello.
You're on Talk Sport. Hello.
Hello. I'm Vera.
Yes, you're Vera.
Yes.
In Spain, of course, you would be Elvira.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I'd like you to tell me, I've got a house in Ireland, and I was getting an auto threat, and I haven't got the money. They didn't give the loan. They wouldn't give the loan for it, so I'm a bit worried about it.
Have you got anyone over there you can refer to?
No. Oh, no.
So you haven't got a friend or a representative there?
No.
So have you got any documentation confirming that what you say is true?
No.
I think you need to get some, don't you?
Who would I get?
Well, you just say to me again, slowly, what it is in Northern Ireland that is in question.
It's a house.
The house?
Yeah.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah. And she wanted to get an extension and called an architect. And my son did, you know? So I cannot get the money to pay for this. I'm not getting the extension done, and I can't afford it.
So they haven't started building it yet?
No.
Oh, I see. I thought they'd started building
Oh,
it.
no.
No, that's why I thought just some representation. Oh, that's not so terrible. So who's living in the house? Your son?
Yes.
So really, all you've got to say to him is, "I can't afford to do that extension. You're going to have to wait." Is that all?
Yeah, I just wanted to know about myself as well, you know, my own health-wise and things like that. And anything about myself, like, you know.
Yeah. Have you got someone to look out for you, Vera, in the UK? Have you got a friend?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're not feeling too sure, you know, a little bit shaky some days, because we all get that, you've got someone you can go around and see, or you can invite round to come and see you, yeah?
Oh, yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Oh, well, that's... I thought for a minute you financially stretched yourself and you were feeling a bit twitchy, but I got that wrong. My mistake.
Yes.
My mistake. I do wish you well. Thanks for the call, Vera. Thank you. I'm Mike Allen at talkSPORT on 08704 20 20 20. In Thailand, it's a coup. In Hungary, it's a 3 ways to breakfast lie. And the strange thing about it is, we all like to believe that we're living in a firm, solid, non-rocky environment, because then we can be creative. We don't have to worry about day-to-day living. If you go back at the history of mankind, it's always been built over a fault line, hasn't it? I use that just for illustrative purposes. That we think we're safe, and we only discover how unsafe we've been through extraordinary circumstances. Do you find yourself in that situation at the moment? It was very interesting talking to Hugh Fulder, the music journalist, about the baby boomer generation, that they're still selling millions of albums. Bob Dylan went into #1 in America at the age of 65. I mean, that's quite extraordinary, isn't it? And people are calling it a lifetime's work. We're going to be talking about Australia in a few minutes with Richard Beard, who was so impressed by Australia's sports people. He went to Australia to find out what made them tick. Do you reckon we should do that now, Johnny, or do you reckon we'll do it after the news? Yeah, we can do it now. Okay. Another production from talkSPORT. A different take on an old place. I'm talking about Australia.
The John Gorn Show.
Hey, it's Gornsey.
Weekday mornings from 10. The man with his finger on the pulse of the nation. And the prognosis ain't looking good.
Every single caller at the moment who's rang in is against me.
A family man.
I'm not getting down because I'm not wearing the thong.
With a national agenda. And a jag, in case you ain't heard.
Oh, my God. That's with the horsehair shirt and the whip.
The John Gorn Show.
Pay attention.
Weekday mornings from 10. On 1089 and 10:53 a.m. talkSPORT.
Yes, baby.
talkSPORT. The radio station where men are men and sheep can sure run fast.
Oi, Vicky!
Award-winning radio for full-blooded blokes across the UK on 1089 and 10:53 a.m.
Dirty.
And the technological miracle that is DAB digital radio.
You're dead, brilliant, fantastic.
talkSPORT.
Coming first, of course, is a national preoccupation. Coming second is a reality. Richard Beard was intrigued by Australia's ability to keep coming first. Dismayed, even. He decided to go there and discover how they did it. Welcome, Richard.
Mike.
Manly Pursuits is your book as a result of encountering the Australians. So let's start in 1975 and another England collapse. Do you recall what you wrote?
Well, that's right. 1975 was when I first really got interested in the Ashes, in the matches between England and Australia. And I think for people of my age, say anywhere between or anyone between the ages of, say, 35 and 45, this rivalry is very important because we didn't have a lot of choice. If you had your hero worshipping stage there in the 70s, we had 2 successive football World Cups where we didn't qualify. And of course there was no Rugby World Cup at that time. So the idea of an England team in a world-class contest was really limited to the Ashes. And I think those of us who were young then and looking for heroes invested a lot in the England teams. And for me it was Tony Gregg and Alan Knott and John Edrich and these people who really first inspired me. And against them, when there were these desperado types, the Australians, who always seemed to be on the way to a fancy dress party, dressed as bandits with those long droopy moustaches and their shirts wide open to the navel. So they were definitely the bad guys, and that's never really stopped for me.
That's interesting, because that's that whole look of 75, Viva Zapata moustaches and bared chests, and it was no different. The men used to dress the same. When you were younger, you tried to dig to Australia via a big hole in your back garden, but undaunted, you called it off in time for tea, and that seems to be something that the British do. They stop in time for tea and tell everyone they're meant to stop anyway.
Yeah, well, I think this digging for Australia was fairly common, because not only did we have their sportsmen coming over and often trouncing us, we also had all sorts of other things to look at which made Australia look brilliant. Do you remember the TV program Barrier Reef, where they had these divers who'd go and save the world, at tea time every Tuesday?
Yes, so it wasn't too different from that thing Skippy, the bush kangaroo or something.
That one didn't quite imprint itself on my mind in the same way. I don't think they had any young female research scientists who went diving in Skippy, the bush kangaroo, which was always interesting in Barrier Reef. But again, there was this idea that Australia was somehow better, more exciting. It had the sea, it had these fish, it had these miniature submarines, whereas we had a paddling pool in the garden. So yeah, there was an idea that there was something special there, that it was worth going to find out what was there and what made them so good at sport and so good at diving, so good at later on making soap operas. Producing people like Clive James. Australians seemed to be everywhere at one stage, doing all the best stuff. And I didn't get there till last May. And luckily I was there just in time for the Ashes victory.
Which must have been sweet justice for you.
Well, it was, and very unexpected. I'd expected to go and be on the spot and be victimised for being an Englishman in the middle of another English defeat. But I've never been so happy to be wrong. And that was probably the most enjoyable part of the trip, the gloating.
When you spent some time at Manly, and I'm looking for you to explain the significance of the town Manly and the book Manly Pursuits, there was an encounter between you and the ocean. You didn't call it the sea because it wasn't, because Australia's a continent, so it's the ocean. It has to be addressed properly. And also your encounter with the Australian crawl.
Well, when I went to Australia, it was really because I was getting a bit bored, I think in the same way as Freddie Flintoff was, with the idea of the decline of the English athlete. And I was really thinking, if my English teams, if the cricket teams can't win against them, then perhaps I ought to go and see if I can win myself. And obviously that meant not playing sport at an elite level, but at my level, which is quite a lot lower than that. And I wanted to see whether it was then a question of temperament, or whether I should be able to compete with the Australians at the level I was at. And I decided to go to Manly because I felt there was some kind of implied greater manliness that the Australians had in the way they would come over and thrash us and then go home again. So they even have a place called Manly just outside Sydney, so that's where I went. And one of the things you notice when you get to Australia, especially around Sydney, but it's the same in Melbourne, around the other big cities as well, is that the ocean is there. It gives this open air aspect to life. And although when I went to Australia I was a non-swimmer, I realized one of the things I wanted to compete with them at was swimming. So the first thing I had to do when I got there was learn to swim. And those adventures are all in the book.
Now, not only was there swimming, but there was also running that appealed to you in Australia, and you made the point that you didn't have to disrobe and shower in front of complete strangers. The Australian system of running was you come out the front door, you close it behind you, you're wearing your running shoes and shorts, and when you finish, you're home again. And the also, not to be forgotten, Australian self-belief and the realisation that was later to become adopted by Hollywood as American guts, but at the time was just the ability of suntan people to feel totally at home and only operate at one level, that is the level to win.
I mean, running's a very democratic sport. But having said that, one of the reasons I wanted to run against Australians is that they're not very good at it. They only had one medal in the World Athletics Championships last year. And of course I soon found when I was there that in fact they are very good at it. And that's partly because they embrace this side of running, which is if you want to, you can do it. We have the London Marathon, which proves that. Every year after the London Marathon, there are interviews with people who say, I really wanted to do it, I've lived my dream, and if you only want to do anything enough, you can achieve that. And that's very much something which is part of the Australian way of life. And their equivalent of the London Marathon is a big race in Sydney called the City to Surf, and they have 60,000 people. Because it's Australian, of course, they've made it into the biggest mass participation race in the world, I think. It's short in the London Marathon. It's only a 13 or 14 kilometres a race, but they all come out, 60,000 people, and I believe that all of them, including me, were trying to win that race, unlike the London Marathon.
So if I asked you what your inheritance from Australia might have been, what do you think you came out of it, your encounter with the Australian suntanned peoples? What do you think it was that you clasped to your chest afterwards and said, at least I've got that?
Well, I can't say that I came home with any medals or cups.
No, but I mean an awareness, a sort of a mental understanding of what motivates these extremely competitive people.
Well, I think it's much more interesting than you think when you arrive, and it works at more than one level. But one thing that's very interesting is that games at every level, right down to the sort of lowest community level, are always competitive. So there's no such thing as a friendly in the way that we know it, that if someone was going to start playing a friendly, there would be some money involved, or there'd be points, or some small prize. So that although they are very friendly people and the games are played in a very friendly spirit, they're not friendlies in the way that we would know a friendly, where it's almost as if the score doesn't matter. So the score always matters. And then it's a question of whether the Australians are competitive because it's organised that way, or it's organised that way because they're already competitive. But I did find this everywhere I went, all the different sports I did, whether it was shooting or golf or running or bowls, swimming, straight away you're in a competitive environment. And that meant, I think, that they probably do react to pressure better, because it's just something which comes with sport. There's no other way of playing. Another thing I took away was the sense that Australia is changing very quickly, and sport is, at a community level, still genuinely a way which Australia is helping to bring different people, different types of immigrants into the community, and it's a unifying force, which was very uplifting, and I was very happy to be part of that, even for a short time.
It's been very nice to talk to you, Richard. Richard Beard talking about his book, Manly Pursuits, Beating the Australians, Yellow Jersey publication, an opportunity to find out what it is that makes the Australians tick. Well, anything to understand Shane Warne. It's all published around the 10th of October, and if you have someone in the family who is a particularly sporting type, I promise you, if they're looking for a birthday gift, they could do a lot worse. Many thanks to Richard Beard. I'm Mike Allen. This is talkSPORT.
It's the golf tournament where, after you've crawled through the tunnel,
made him across the square meadow,
and combed the island beach, you wind up in a hooker's graveyard. Full colour live updates from the 2006 Ryder Cup with the legendary Bob Butler.
That's a lot of pressure.
Direct from the K Club, County Kildare, Ireland. Start Friday morning on the Alan Brazil Sports Breakfast and continue through the day. Throughout the tournament on talkSPORT with Magner's Irish Cider. Time dedicated to you.
This is talkSPORT. I'm Mike Allen. Tanks rolled through the streets of Bangkok yesterday as Thailand's army staged a military coup. Rebel generals declared martial law, while their armoured vehicles circled government buildings. As you know, yesterday, Hungary declared themselves, and I've got the expression here, lying to the population morning, evening and night over the nation's economy. As an email mentioned just came in about half a minute ago, when was the last time we had 2 revolutions in a day? We're watching history here. We're watching history unfold. Is this a salute to the age of communication, when we can send letters, pictures, stuff, mail around the world, and we're locked into that? We're just watching it tear itself apart. Or is it all helping to defuse the situation? It's interesting, isn't it? Is that which we consider important helping to tear apart that which we hold dear? The number is 08704 20 20 20. History's occurring, and if we're not careful, we're going to miss out. Oh, sure we will. Because we're looking around us. I need you to give me a call and tell me, how does it feel to be looking at the world history opening up before us? 08704 20 20 20. I'm Mike Allen. This is talkSPORT. News coming up from the coup in Thailand. Military coup in Thailand has caused terror and confusion for 45,000 Britons there. 25,000 are there on holiday and 20,000 live there. The Foreign Office has warned them, at the moment, stay alert. I'm Mike Allen. News update in just a moment. You're listening to talkSPORT. Calls coming in from people who want to talk about these developments on 08704 20 20 20.
On 1089 and 1053 AM.
This is my genuine belief.
Around the world.
I just said no.
Around the clock. From the Sky News Centre. talkSPORT on the Hour News.
The top stories from the Sky News Centre at 4.
On 1089 and 1053 AM. talkSPORT.
Witnessing major changes in the world stage, the coup in Thailand, and yesterday claims that the economy in Hungary was a fabrication. 08704 20 20 20. These are events we should be talking about. Surely these events weren't a complete surprise. What can you tell me about it? What about friends of yours who live in Thailand? There are 25,000 Brits on holiday there. There are 20,000 who live there as a permanent address. We, via a friend of John's, the producer of the programme, have been trying to hook up with someone who just moved there just a matter of days ago. Surely they wouldn't have made that decision if they thought there was the slightest chance of military upheaval. But maybe you've got a friend there who said to you, whatever you do, don't come over. Whatever you do, just stay where you are. 08704 20 20 20. Events that we should be talking about. Were they a complete surprise? What can you tell me and the rest of the UK from your friends' experience who are there at the moment? 08704 20 20 20. Can you imagine what it must have been like to wake up and hear tanks rumbling into the city and suddenly the armed forces are there? It's a coup. It's an event. What was it like to discover that the economy in Hungary was a fabrication? It was a total lie. Lied to 3 times a day regularly, before and after meals. Major changes on the planet. A planet which, we rather like our stability. We sort of got used to it. But it is an upheaval, isn't it? It's an upheaval when you think this is happening here. 45,000 Britons are affected by a Thai mutiny. 08704 20 20 20. Major changes on the planet, which on the grand scheme of things is probably not such a big place, but suddenly it's a lot lonelier, it's a lot colder, and it's a lot more worrying because a lot of us have connections with people in those territories, and we're concerned, and justifiably concerned, for their safety. If you're in a position to comment, if you're in a position to have friends there and you want to tell me what their take on the situation is, if maybe you've been able to speak to them on the phone, 08704 20 20 20. That would be absolutely fabulous. Would appreciate that, actually.